describe yourselves. So, Liza?
I said I'm a fire starter because most of the jobs that I've had so far, if not all of them, I've been the first one to do them. And also because I started ABI.London it was 2015, sorry. In October 2015, I was the first leader for ABI.London as well.
So I am a woman in tech, and I will always protect and progress women and men I work with. I wrote this because I've always felt, again, being the first developer tester in the room, always having to crack the bad jokes with the guys sometimes. And I really felt people didn't understand the two aspects of my life when I was speaking to my managers or mentors. Didn't really have any, so I always strive to do this for my reports. I actually try to understand what they deal with on their daily lives as well as work. Yeah.
Okay, so I wrote I am a mother and a brain scientist, which seems a bit uninspired compared to everybody else's, but I've been up since 3 o'clock with a 4-year-old, so I apologise if I can't string sentences together. I like to think that I put motherhood first, but often being an academic, work gets in the way, and I like brains.
I'm Denise. I wrote that I'm a 20-year veteran of this crazy industry, and I'm still here. I'm originally from America, and I started my tech career about 20 years ago at Microsoft, and I did about 9 years off and on there, and lived through the crazy .com era that produced Amazon and Expedia, which is where I work now since they transferred me here about 2.5 years ago. So yeah, I have fought one of the same battles as Maryam. We used to work together. But yeah, still here.
That kind of gives everybody an overview, and I'm sure all of us have faced different aspects of that. So what I'd like to kind of gauge from each of the panellists today is, in terms of the challenges what are constantly talked about, what things do you think would encourage
Not as unachievable as they might think, because I think the culture that we have nowadays, I mean, I know I have a young daughter as well. I have a 7-year-old daughter, and it doesn't matter what she hears at home. When she comes back from school, she says, this is for boys and this is for girls. And it's a constant battle to try and change that mindset, because it's ingrained in people, and it just unconsciously you just do that. So one of the things that, one of my roles at Imperial College, for instance, was to start an outreach program for girls, to get girls into our degrees and study computing. And I think what I've noticed that they were lacking was even the knowledge of what they can do with the tech and how achievable it is for them. And so what we try to do is to have girls come and try and create something, be creative in what they were doing, and use code to create their own things, and then take it home so they could do it at home. So there's a lot of stuff that you can actually just sit in your bedroom and do it, but you need to be introduced to it, and you need to be encouraged to it, and you need to be shown that what you can do. And I think sometimes it's the lack of knowledge. And obviously role models are super important as they start seeing more women in tech speaking at events and being in the news, then it becomes normal to them to think, yes, I can be a woman in tech as well. So that's, I don't want to take too much time as a pass on. So,
I have a little bit of a different take on it. So I'm originally from Pakistan, and what we have there is a lot of women, girls, actually go into tech to study. It's kind of maybe one of the only decent choices, maybe professionally, that's available there. You get a respectable job, you get a good proposal, you get married, la la la. A lot of the girls, like in my class, we had 30 students, and there were 15 girls, 15 boys. I think there's only 3 of us who are actually working professionally in computer science, which is a bit weird. Some of it is cultural, some of it is because of their own choice. They didn't actually enjoy computer science at the end, but they actually found that path of discovery for them. And we did have female teachers as well. Whereas when I did my master's here in London, and I didn't have any female teachers here, someone who was inspiring or actually pushed me, which for me was a bit odd because I had the same back home, whereas I didn't have that here. Whereas you would think this is a progressive country, so you'll be able to see it. So, but kind of a mixed message for me. But when it comes to, now I have some nieces and nephews, and actually my best friend's husband, who is a developer, they have 2 girls, and he actually got worried the other day. He's like, oh my God, her maths results weren't that great. Oh my God, she can never be a programmer. He was really worried. And I was like, that's fine. You have to let her discover what she likes. But then I feel that over here, maybe from what I see, it's a bit different, the challenge. People are back home, definitely people are encouraged to get into technology, maybe because it's a safe profession, but could be something different.
I think there's a couple of things. I think certainly in this country, young girls don't think that science is for them. I think I read somewhere that in the UK or the US that they did a psychological study and found that girls, even at the age of 6, had decided that science is for boys and geniuses are boys and they're not for girls. And I think that one thing you can do is, one thing that certainly was true when I was at school, and I feel is still true now, is that it's not being made clear what the opportunities are within the tech field at school. So a lot of people, when they are picking their subjects, if they're good at maths, they get told that they can be a mechanical engineer or an IT consultant, and if that's not what they want to do, then it doesn't sound very exciting, then they don't necessarily choose those subjects. Whereas my experience going to a science university was that people went from there into a broad range of artistic and creative careers. But I think the other issue that really needs to be tackled to improve the retainment of women in tech is improved mentorship and pastoral care of women in the environment. I think that generally there's this stereotype in business and in academia where I am that there needs to be some particular type of alpha personality, that you need to be competitive, it's very macho, it's very aggressive. And when people don't necessarily fill those personal qualities, you have a lack of confidence. You see other people up there standing like they know what they're talking about, and you really think that they're much better than you, but it's not actually the case. And it took me, when I was doing my PhD, at least the entire PhD, to realise that most of the people were standing up there and just bullshit. Yeah. And I wish I could have gone back and told the me when I was there at the beginning that really these people don't know what they're talking about, and you are as good as them. So programs such as mentorship, where people who've been through it can go and tell these people at the early stage of the career, give them the confidence to keep going and to promote and encourage them to promote the skills that they have and not try and fit into the stereotypes that seem to be pervaded throughout the corporate and academic world. I think that that's really important.
I actually agree with Maryam. Coming from Seattle, it's almost as if tech is the only career option. So I'm surrounded by women all the time, though I will admit here in London, there is a vastly different old young man's club here. Yeah. But I think that we're doing a really good job of bringing women into tech, attracting them in tech. I think what we do a crap job at is retaining women in tech. One of the sessions I sat through talked about do women leave tech so much? My own company's trying to figure out why can't we promote women beyond a certain level? And they did a study, and it isn't maternity leave, it isn't flexible work hours, it isn't you don't feel like you fit in. It is plain and simple, they don't have access to fairness and opportunity. And I mean, yeah, you're all nodding, yeah, me too. The things that make us who we are as women are not valued the same way. And so when you act a certain way, when men act the same way to them, it's valuable. They're leaders and assertive. We're aggressive and bossy. And it's there, even though it's just a bias, everybody has it, and it's really hard. And after a while, how many times you keep banging your head into that wall? So I think that's the problem that tech has to address, is how do we keep women, and how do we make sure that there's parity and fairness and opportunity? Because you can bring all these women in, but like a friend of mine said a couple days ago, you can have a really high boob count, but if you're not moving it through and up, it doesn't matter, they will just leave.
I'm sure everybody can kind of relate to that. So what I'm going to say is that we're not going to have any questions posed now. We're keeping to the end, so we can kind of run through the topics, and we're sure then a lot of there's a recurring theme throughout these topics. And so if we go to the next one, which is to do with, go back, right. So you've mentioned a lot of the kind of community groups and so forth, and I've heard the mentoring side being mentioned. There's technical workshops, personal development, sponsorship. So I think definitely an impact for me is like, I've worked, same as Denise, for 20 years in IT, and have to say the area that I work in is business intelligence. And when I first started working in this area, people were like a bit shocked, because you never used to get women, firstly, and then secondly, women of colour. So for me, having these different groups around to kind of speak to other women, and I think one of the key things is remembering that IT is different areas. You don't have to be a developer, so it does help to have the mentoring, because some people want to be a developer for the entirety of their careers, but a lot of us want to move to the next level. And as you said, how do you get there? And I think it'd be interesting to know from what you think about the impact of the community groups, such as the one you're here today, and what you think about the mentoring, the technology workshops, sponsorship, and the personal development. So, so I think in terms of everybody's got kind of different backgrounds. Some of us have worked in industry. I worked my entirety in that, but some of you worked in academic. So even so, it's the same thing. It doesn't matter. We all face the same challenge, because it's like, when they say, oh, how many women are there in the room? It's like, you might see out 70, 100. You're lucky if you're 10 hands up when you're working predominantly with community. So what do you think in terms of, we can start from this end, well, right, it's going to run across, but what do you think in terms of, the impact of community groups?
One thing I was told about a year or two ago that stuck with me is women are over-mentored and under-sponsored, and men are over-sponsored but under-mentored. And at the time I'm like, well, what's the difference? There's a huge difference, and it can make all the difference in your career, because we all can have mentors. They're like your therapist, your landing place, your best buddy, like a mother figure, but that person is not going to help your career except, to help you think about how to do things better. A sponsor is someone who is in your org, who can have a direct impact on your career, who you can make look good, and they can foster a legacy. And because of just the way men work together, that stuff fosters naturally. It's hard when you're a woman and your sponsor is a man. There's all kinds of weirdness up in that, like sexual harassment, impropriety, like did I get there because I slept with him sort of thing. So women are really losing out. And I urge you, find a sponsor, and by finding, I mean go to them and say, this is what I want, can you help me get there? Because somebody has to put your name through. Somebody has to vouch for you and back you up and give you the halo effect. So these kind of community groups are really good for that, but I urge you to look inside your own org for that, because when promotion time comes, you're going to need somebody.
Okay, so they're a bit more difficult for me to answer. I mean, I think these things are really powerful, because at the time when I was coming through university, none of these things were available to me that I was aware of. in order to provide support, in order to suggest guidance and provide quota scores. In fact, you know, when I was at school, which really wasn't even that long ago, I didn't even know that there was any such thing as a computing degree. So I think, you know, providing these sorts of network and technology skills are really changing things over time. I think in terms of talking about the importance of mentorship, this is something that really needs to be investigated within academia, because just providing a listening ear and advice and experience of how to go through the system and how to prioritise what your career needs ought to be, and help people decide how to move forward. The things that just aren't available at all at the moment in academia. You've simply got one system with one system with one type of personality, with a lot of men at the top, with a lot. Well, I don't know. I mean, this question is quite difficult for me to answer, because I've had a lot of difficulty getting sort of community groups off the ground in academia, mostly because people feel completely overwhelmed with the amount of work that they have to do, and that they don't necessarily feel like they can invest the time to get these things off the ground, when really, you know, they won't help the first generation of people, but they will help the next, you know, perhaps in, you know, the next generation, or 3 to 5 years. So getting these things started in academia, how to get them started, would, you know, any advice on that to me would be really great, if anyone's got a suggestion.
So I want to talk about my personal experience with respect to this. So I was a software dev and test for about 8 years, and I realized that, okay, I need to put in a lot of my personal time in if I want to be with the guys. Because, like, I'm a housewife as well, I switch like that. The minute I'm out of the office, I'm thinking about what's at home, what do I need to cook, right? These are the errands I need to run. Not that my husband doesn't help, but anyway, that's the role I play every single day, and I don't have that type of time. So I realized I'm really good with people, so I should try and get the switch from tech to managerial role. Now I started speaking to my line manager at the time, and he was like, so what is it that you want? Like, he didn't really understand what my challenge was, and he was like, well, you need to be a tech lead first before we put you in that role. And there was no program in the company I was at the time. It was really just frustrating. It was 6 months of frustrating meetings with line managers, tech leads. He said, oh, you should try and get a mentor. I tried to speak to other tech leads. They didn't know how to help me. I really struggled. And then, as the QA director I had at the time, he really helped ask me some of the difficult questions. He said, how much salary do you want? You should ask yourself that question. Is it important? What do you want to learn? What do you want to gain? Who do you want to be seen as? And it just helped me think a lot. And then I said, right, I'm going to try and get a job as a manager, even though I do not have managerial experience. I will use my personality, because that's what I think I'm good at. And luckily I did get a job. They got me in, and now I'm in a position where there is another person, there's a female quality engineer in my company, and I can see she's really good with like business knowledge, and she's really good at collating that information and organizing, and she'd be really good as a TPM or a project manager. But she's a quality engineer, and she wants to get there, and her manager is a man. And the advice she's getting is, so to get there, I think you should be more involved in the women in tech stuff. And what are you talking about? And I've actually said to my, I actually said to my director, I'm happy to take X on board as my report, because I can see that hunger in her, but to say to her, you need to be there, technically you need to be a women in tech person before you get to that role, no, that's not the part she needs to play. So really, to summarize, not having a female mentor or a person who can actually understand your challenges or actually see the person you are and what you bring to the company every day it really affected my personal growth. I was fortunate to actually be able to do the shift, but now I'm in the driving seat a little bit, and I'm like, if I see people like that in my company, I'm actually going to go and help them.
I would like to add there, and I think this is a continuation of what you were talking about with coaching. Coaching is slightly different, and basically addresses one question or something that you want to change. It doesn't have to do with your job, it has to do more with yourself. And this is where we were, and it is incredibly difficult to get people involved in it. It was mostly students and postdocs. Once you get to a certain academic level, once you're a lecturer, you're way too busy writing bids and trying to, to get your work done. And even as a postdoc, I mean, it's really, really difficult. I think it is important, and this is linking with the community events. When I organised the GHC', there was so many students there, and so many PhD students there, and the energy was amazing, and they were all so excited. And meeting people in the same, with the same issues, with the same qualifications, and the same problems, and just that energy of actually encouraging each other to go for it. I think it was something amazing. I mean, GHC is something out of this world. You go there and it's 70,000 women, something 80,000 women. It's amazing. And GHC' was a little bit of that, with 300. But you could see how that impacted it. You could see how going out to an event like this and you start talking to people, you can feel the energy, and you feel energized to go and go for it and do something and go where you want to go. So I think they're incredible. Obviously I'm biased, but I think they're incredibly important, because I've seen the change, and some of the students at Imperial, when I was teaching, some of them came and talked to me afterwards and said, oh, this was amazing, I'm going to do this and that and the other. So yeah, these are important, and it's important that everybody works together. I think ABI, when I started ABI, and I was talking to the local, so the main local in the US, and they said, no, get pilots involved, get all the people involved, get all the communities involved. We're not competing. We are working together towards the same goal, so you should all work together, and I think that's a great attitude to have, and it's the way to go.
Thank you, yeah, definitely. I think you all summed it up really nicely. I mean, definitely with the community groups, I think it is vital that the networking also, working together, because that's one of the problems that I think was highlighted initially, that as women sometimes we don't support each other, and these are also, there's some men out there, so I'm saying, but it's about understanding, these different aspects of tech. There's different personalities. Some of us are shy, some of us are quite loud, and it's just being appreciative of that. And I think we both face the same kind of challenges, whether you work as sometimes a man or as a woman, but also for women it's a lot harder, but then also for, I think, academia and also in industry. So yeah, I went to GHC' last year, and I met a lot of students as well, who ask me what I do, and a lot of people would say, what is that? But it's the most exciting area, I'm just going to say it, the most exciting area of tech at the moment. There's so many different facets. So I think definitely the community groups, you can see if you get involved, it will always be beneficial for you. It doesn't mean you have to sit up here and talk, but it's a good way of reaching out and getting other people to share their experiences. So yeah, that's great. We'll get to the next one. Right. Next one. Right, so this is the final one, and it kind of joins all the things together. It's about, I would say, gaining people's thoughts and positive discrimination. So I've got two videos here. Right, so some of you may not know what AnitaB actually looks like. So that's from 2007, which she discussed the 50-50 initiative, and then in 2017, so if you do the 2007 first, I want you to watch them, and I'm going to kind of relay it back so you can kind of gauge where we're coming from with this. So,
Well, 2 years ago, I challenged the 800 attendees at a very large Women in Science and Engineering conference that the NSF held, to use 50-50 by 2020 as a mantra. And it's my opinion that only by really full participation, only by having a moonshot kind of goal, will we actually do what's necessary to pull women into creating the technology that is going to wash over the world in the future.
okay, right, so we now look at the 2017, right, that's 2017 is a snippet from the actual keynote, and so just make it larger. This is Liza Layne talking.
When we were imagining a future of online magazines and airline bookings, we assumed there'd be more women building it. After all, the number of women in medicine and law was rising at this time, and most of us thought that tech was trending that same way. But since the time I was at Microsoft, the percentage of women in tech has actually gone down. We all know the numbers. In 2015, women made up only a quarter of the entire tech workforce and held just 15% of technical roles. African Americans, just 3% of the tech workforce, and Hispanics, 1%.
Okay, right, so in terms of the positive discrimination, I think people think when they say 50-50 means we're able to get 50-50 workforce. I think that's not realistic. It's more a case of aiming to make it more balanced. And one of the things I think all of us have faced is, even if you've studied any STEM course, it's not balanced where you have the males and the females. Now, in June 2017, Accenture said that they're aiming to get to the 50-50 by 2025. Now, I want to hear what people's thoughts are on this, in that the positive discrimination, because obviously we've had a lot of things come out in the press. You've had the Google thing, where they've had one of their engineers make his views very vocal, and then also you've got a lot of, in the Silicon Valley, you've got a lot of issues around where they are trying to address the imbalance that are going on in a lot of the tech companies. And it'd be interesting to know from both from an academic standpoint and also from an industry-wide standpoint, do you think that positive discrimination is something that companies should be aiming for, or they shouldn't be aiming for? What's your thoughts? So, you can start. Do you want?
From the academic point of view, I can talk about my experience. I did my PhD and I got pregnant towards the end of my PhD, and research wasn't an option for me because it's just too aggressive and too unstable, and I needed to pay the bills to provide. And it was a conscious decision that I wouldn't go there. I stayed in universities. I've been teaching at universities. My role at the Digital Catapult at the moment is the first place that I've worked at. It's not a university. And the gender imbalance, you see it in one and the other. I mean, it's the same problem. In terms of positive discrimination, I've heard from the time that I was working for women in technology, I've heard from my students a lot that what they would hear from their fellow male students was that you got that job because you're a woman, and they need to fill the quotas. So it doesn't matter if they were actually very competent and got it because they were competent. This was the image that was coming across. I think it's tricky. The positive discrimination is something that can backfire, and I think it is backfiring. what I think that should be done is not only train women and get them with the technical skills, but then at the companies, hire the right people as managers and as HR people, so that they know, or at least are aware of their unconscious bias, and they don't discriminate. And I think it takes a lot of work, and it's slow, but I think it's the best way to tackle it. At the company that I am at the moment, when I first applied for the job, I went and looked how many women there were in high roles, and I was quite happy with it. It's not perfect, but the attitude is we need women, we need the way of working, we need their technical skills, and it's a very family-friendly company, which helps as well, but it's family-friendly for men and women. So it's fine for you to leave early because you have to pick up your kids from school, whatever your gender. So, and I think that is the way to approach it. Because, yeah, I've seen the results of positive discrimination, and they're not great. They're just going to build resentment, I think, and I think it's very unfair for women and for men as well.